The complaint he buried came back with his own name printed at the top. Lieutenant Travis Cole did not move at first. He sat alone in his glass-walled office at the Brookhaven Police Department, one hand wrapped around a paper cup of black coffee, the other resting on the computer mouse, as if the screen in front of him had made a mistake. Outside his office, the morning shift moved with its usual rhythm, radios murmuring, phones ringing, boots crossing polished tile, officers laughing too softly near the break room because everyone in that building knew which doors carried power behind them. Travis had been behind one of those doors for 12 years. He knew how to make a report slow down. He knew how to make a complaint lose its urgency. He knew which words made misconduct sound like confusion, which signatures could delay a review, which quiet favors kept uncomfortable truths from reaching the wrong desk. That was why, 9 days earlier, when Officer Marcus Reed submitted a racial bias complaint against another officer in their unit, Travis did not panic. He did not shout. He did not even look surprised. He simply closed the folder, leaned back in his chair, and told Marcus in a calm voice that some things looked different from the outside than they did from the field. Marcus had stood there in full uniform, shoulders squared, eyes tired but steady, a black officer in a department that often praised diversity in public and punished honesty in private. He had not come to start a war. He had come with dates, times, badge numbers, a patrol car ID, a body camera reference, and the name of a 19-year-old college student named Jordan Ellis who had been pulled over for a dim taillight and treated like suspicion had already convicted him. Marcus had watched the stop unfold from 3 feet away. He had heard the tone change the moment Jordan lowered his window. He had seen how quickly routine became personal when the driver was young, black, and scared enough to keep both hands visible on the steering wheel. Marcus had written everything down because that was what policy demanded. That was what integrity demanded. And maybe, somewhere deep inside him, that was what the badge still demanded. But Travis Cole saw something else when that complaint landed on his desk. He saw a threat, not to justice, not to the community, to the department's image, to his unit, to himself. So he did what men like Travis often do when truth arrives wearing a uniform they cannot control. He softened the language. He questioned the intent. He marked the complaint for preliminary review and placed it where urgent things went to become forgotten things. Then he looked Marcus in the eye and said, "You need to think very carefully about the kind of officer you want to be remembered as." Now, 9 days later, Travis stared at the email from Internal Affairs, and the words refused to change. Notice of IA investigation. Case 24-1187. Named subject, Lieutenant Travis Cole. The coffee in his hand had gone cold. The room around him felt smaller. And for the first time in years, the man who knew how to bury paperwork realized paperwork had learned how to breathe. 9 days earlier, before the email, before the cold coffee, before Lieutenant Travis Cole saw his own name sitting under the words named subject, Officer Marcus Reed was standing on the shoulder of Briarwood Avenue with blue lights washing over the side of a silver Honda Civic and a 19-year-old college student staring straight ahead, like one wrong breath could change the rest of his life. It was 8:42 at night, not late enough for the streets to feel empty, but late enough for every storefront window to turn reflective under the glow of gas station signs and passing headlights. Brookhaven was the kind of city that liked to describe itself as safe, clean, and quiet. But Marcus had learned that quiet did not always mean peace. Sometimes quiet meant people had grown tired of complaining. Sometimes quiet meant they had learned no one was listening. Jordan Ellis sat in the driver's seat with his hands placed high on the steering wheel, fingers spread, student identification card resting on the dashboard beside his proof of insurance. His voice had stayed respectful from the first second. "Yes, officer." "No, officer. I am heading back to campus, officer." But Officer Kyle Bennett, Marcus's patrol partner that night, had treated every calm answer as if it were hiding something. Kyle was 29, confident in the sharp way younger officers sometimes became when they mistook authority for wisdom. He circled the car slowly, shining his flashlight through the back window, then toward the floorboards, then toward Jordan's backpack on the passenger seat. The reason for the stop was a dim taillight. Nothing more. Marcus knew it. Dispatch knew it. Jordan knew it. But Kyle kept leaning deeper into suspicion, asking where Jordan had been, why he was in this neighborhood, whether the car belonged to him, whether he had anything in the vehicle that would make them nervous. Marcus felt the old weight settle in his chest. Not fear, not anger, recognition. The kind of recognition that comes when a pattern appears before anyone else is willing to call it by name. Jordan swallowed hard and said he was coming from a study group 3 miles away at a classmate's apartment. Kyle smirked as if the answer sounded rehearsed. Then he told Jordan to step out of the car. Marcus turned his head slightly. Kyle, hold on. The stop is for equipment. We do not have probable cause for a search. The sentence was calm, professional, exactly the way academy instructors said it should be said. But the air changed anyway. Kyle looked at Marcus for half a second too long, then gave a short laugh without humor. You writing policy memos now, Reed? Marcus did not answer the insult. He kept his eyes on the scene, on Jordan's hands, on the camera clipped to Kyle's chest, on the convenience store across the street where a woman stood near the door, holding her phone low but steady. Every detail mattered. Every second mattered. Because Marcus understood something Kyle did not, or did not care to understand. When a person is treated like a threat before they have done anything wrong, the damage does not wait for an arrest. It begins right there, under the lights, in the silence, in the way a young man learns that innocence may still require proof. Jordan stepped out slowly, asking if he was being detained. Kyle told him not to make this difficult. Marcus heard the words and felt something inside him become still. Not loud, not dramatic. Still, the kind of stillness that comes before a decision. By the time the stop ended, no citation had been issued, nothing illegal had been found, and Jordan drove away with his shoulders tight and his eyes fixed forward. Kyle climbed back into the patrol vehicle and muttered that Marcus needed to stop making things complicated. Marcus looked through the windshield at the fading taillights of the Honda and said nothing. But later that night, at 11:17, he sat alone in the report room under fluorescent lights and typed the truth exactly as it happened. At 11:17 that night, the report room felt colder than the rest of the building, the kind of cold that came from old vents, tired walls, and silence that had watched too many officers decide what kind of truth they were willing to write down. Marcus Reed sat at the third computer from the door, still in uniform, his patrol jacket folded over the back of the chair, the glow of the monitor reflecting in his tired eyes. The station around him had quieted into the late shift rhythm. A printer clicked somewhere near records. A radio murmured from the front desk. Down the hall, someone laughed at a joke that did not reach the room where Marcus sat. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for several seconds before he began. He did not write with rage. He wrote with precision. Location, Briarwood Avenue near the East Bridge Market. Time of stop, approximately 8:42 p.m. Initial reason, dim passenger side taillight. Driver, Jordan Ellis. Age 19, valid student identification presented. Marcus included every detail he knew would matter later, because he had learned a long time ago that truth without structure was too easy for powerful people to call emotion. He wrote that Officer Kyle Bennett expanded the scope of the stop without clearly stated probable cause. He wrote that the driver remained calm and compliant. He wrote that no citation was issued. He wrote that no contraband was discovered. He wrote that a civilian witness appeared to record part of the encounter from the sidewalk near the convenience store. Each sentence felt small by itself, but together they became something harder to dismiss. A record, a line in the system, a place where the truth could stand, even if Marcus was forced to stand alone. When he finished the incident supplement, he opened the internal reporting portal and selected the category that everyone in the building knew existed, but almost no one wanted to use: bias, concern, and improper escalation. The words on the screen looked clean, official, almost harmless. But Marcus knew better. He knew that clicking submit would change how certain people looked at him in the locker room, how conversations would stop when he entered, how supervisors would begin using phrases like judgment, attitude, and fit. He also knew Jordan Ellis had driven away that night with his hands still shaking, and that mattered more than being liked by men who confused loyalty with silence. Marcus uploaded his supplement, attached the body camera reference numbers, entered the patrol vehicle identification, and listed Lieutenant Travis Cole as the reviewing supervisor because that was the chain of command. Before he clicked submit, he leaned back and stared at the badge on his own chest. For most of his life, Marcus had believed that a badge was supposed to make a person more accountable, not less. His father, a retired bus mechanic from Decatur, used to say that a uniform did not change a man's heart. It only revealed what he did when people had to listen to him. Marcus thought about that as the cursor blinked beside the final confirmation button. Then he clicked submit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the system generated a case number. BRK 24-1187. Marcus wrote it down in a small black notebook he kept in his locker, the same notebook where he recorded court dates, witness names, policy references, and moments he did not trust the system to remember for him. That small act, ink on paper, would later matter more than anyone knew. Across the hall, behind frosted glass, Lieutenant Travis Cole was still in his office, lights on, blinds half closed. Marcus could see the outline of him through the glass, broad shoulders, white shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows, phone pressed to his ear. Marcus did not know that within minutes, the complaint would land in Travis's queue. He did not know that Travis would open it, read the first paragraph, and stop smiling. He did not know that the truth he had just submitted was about to enter the hands of a man more interested in protecting reputation than protecting people. All Marcus knew was that the report was filed. The policy had been followed. The truth had been placed where truth was supposed to go. And for one quiet second, before the system began to close around him, he allowed himself to believe that might be enough. By 7:12 the next morning, Lieutenant Travis Cole had already read the complaint 3 times, not because he wanted to understand it, but because he wanted to find the weak spot. Men like Travis did not fear lies. Lies were easy to manage. Lies could be denied, reshaped, buried under louder lies. What unsettled him was clean documentation. A time, a location, a witness, a body camera reference, a patrol vehicle identification number, a young driver with a name, a school, and a traffic stop that had ended with no citation. Marcus Reed had not written like an angry officer trying to punish a coworker. He had written like someone building a record that might outlive everyone's excuses. Travis sat behind his desk while morning light pushed through the blinds in thin gray lines, cutting across the framed commendations on his wall. He had built his career on control, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that came from knowing who wanted a promotion, who needed overtime, who had made mistakes that could be remembered at the right time. When Marcus knocked on the open door at 7:28, Travis did not look up immediately. He let the silence sit there first. Silence was useful. It made people explain themselves before anyone asked a question. Marcus stepped inside and stood near the chair without sitting. His uniform was pressed, his face calm, but Travis noticed the notebook in his hand. That irritated him more than it should have. "Close the door," Travis said. Marcus did. The click sounded louder than it needed to. Travis finally looked up and gave him the kind of smile that was not meant to comfort anyone. "I read your submission." Marcus nodded once. "Yes, sir. You understand what you are alleging?" Travis asked. "I documented what I observed." Travis leaned back, folding his hands across his stomach. "That is not what I asked." The room seemed to tighten around them. Outside the glass wall, officers moved past without looking in, practicing the kind of blindness that keeps careers safe. Travis tapped one finger against the folder. "You are putting a serious label on a routine stop. A dim taillight, a nervous driver, an officer using discretion. That is field work, Reed, not bias." Marcus kept his voice even. The stop expanded beyond the original reason without a clear legal basis. Travis gave a small sigh, as if disappointed by a student who had failed an easy test. "You know what concerns me? Your tone, your judgment, your willingness to assume the worst about a fellow officer." Marcus felt the words land exactly where Travis aimed them. Not at the report, at his character. That was how the ground shifted under people who told the truth. First, the facts became feelings. Then the witness became the problem. Travis lowered his voice. "This department works because we trust each other. The public already looks for reasons to question us. We do not need our own people feeding that fire." Marcus looked at the folder on the desk. "Respectfully, sir, accountability is not feeding a fire." For the first time, Travis's smile disappeared. Only for a second, but Marcus saw it. "Be careful," Travis said softly. "There are officers who build long careers here, and there are officers who make themselves difficult to place. I would hate to see you become the second kind." There it was. Not a threat anyone could quote easily. Not a sentence that looked dangerous on paper, but clear enough to chill the air between them. Marcus understood. Shift changes. Bad assignments. Missed promotions. A reputation whispered into rooms before he entered them. Travis picked up a pen and wrote something on a yellow note. I am marking this for preliminary review. No action until I determine whether it has merit. Marcus' new policy said bias complaints had to be forwarded for independent review. He knew a supervisor named in the chain could not simply decide whether discomfort deserved daylight. But he also knew what would happen if he argued too hard in that room with no witness and no recording. So he nodded. I understand. Travis slid the folder to the side of his desk, away from the outgoing tray. Good. Then we are done here. Marcus opened the door and stepped back into the hallway. The station sounded normal again. Radios, phones, footsteps, someone laughing near the coffee machine. But something had changed. His complaint had not been denied. That would have created a record. It had been paused, softened, placed in a quiet corner where truth could starve without anyone admitting they had killed it. Marcus walked to his locker, opened the small black notebook, and wrote down the time of the meeting, Travis's exact words, and one sentence beneath them all. Complaint not forwarded. By noon, the first consequence arrived without a memo, without a signature, without anyone saying the word punishment. Marcus Reed saw it on the weekly schedule taped beside the duty board, printed in black ink under the buzzing hallway light. His name had been moved from the Central District Evening Patrol to the South Perimeter Overnight Rotation, a stretch of industrial roads, closed warehouses, and empty parking lots that most officers worked only when they were new, disciplined, or forgotten. No one had told him. No one had asked him. They had simply moved him. He stood there for a moment, reading the line twice, feeling the familiar heat of humiliation rise beneath the calm he had spent years learning how to keep on his face. Around him, the station continued breathing like nothing had happened. Officers clipped radios to their belts. Someone complained about the coffee. A printer jammed near records. Life inside the building went on, because quiet retaliation rarely interrupts the room. It just changes the temperature for one person at a time. Officer Daniel Brooks noticed from near the mail slots. Daniel was 27, white, soft-spoken, and still young enough to believe that staying neutral made him safe. He looked from the schedule to Marcus, then quickly back down. At the envelope in his hand, Marcus saw the glance. He also saw Daniel choose silence. That part hurt more than the schedule, not because Marcus expected courage from everyone, but because he knew silence had a sound. It sounded like footsteps walking away. It sounded like chairs scraping back when he entered the break room. It sounded like conversations dying mid-sentence beside the vending machine. By the end of the day, the shift had changed in other ways too. Marcus's court appearance for a burglary case was reassigned without explanation. His request for a training seminar on de-escalation was marked pending even though there were still open seats. 2 officers who used to ask him about weekend basketball stopped meeting his eyes. None of it looked like discrimination on a single sheet of paper. That was the genius of it. Spread thin enough, unfairness could be mistaken for coincidence. But Marcus had lived long enough to know the difference between a coincidence and a message. At 3:36 p.m., he logged into the internal portal to check the status of case BRK 24-1187. The page loaded slowly. Then the complaint number appeared with a gray tag beside it, pending supervisory assessment. No forwarding date. No internal affairs review note. No acknowledgement of the body camera reference. Marcus stared at the screen, then opened the attachment list. The incident supplement was there. The patrol vehicle number was there. But the body camera file he had tagged the night before showed a red warning icon. Media unavailable. Possible system error. He leaned closer, reading the words as if they might explain themselves. They did not. His pulse stayed steady, but his hand moved to the small notebook in his shirt pocket. He wrote the time, the portal status, and the exact error message. Then he checked the backup reference number in the evidence system. Access restricted. Supervisor authorization required. That was new. Across the room, Daniel Brooks stood by the copier with a stack of traffic forms in his hand, watching Marcus from the corner of his eye. Daniel knew something. Marcus could see it in the way the younger officer looked almost ready to speak, then swallowed the words before they reached his mouth. Marcus did not chase him. Truth forced out too early sometimes runs back into hiding. Instead, Marcus closed the portal, signed out properly, and walked toward the locker room with the same measured steps he used during a traffic stop, the same steady face he wore when people expected him to be angry. Inside, beneath the hum of fluorescent lights, He opened his locker and placed the notebook on the metal shelf. The pages were filling now. Times, names, status changes, missing files, small facts. Small facts were not dramatic. Small facts did not shake rooms by themselves. But Marcus knew something Travis Cole seemed to have forgotten. Systems are built on records. And when a man tries to hide the truth inside a system, every tiny record he touches can become a witness against him. That evening, Marcus Reed drove home through a light Georgia rain that turned every traffic signal into a red and green blur across the windshield. The streets of Brookhaven looked peaceful from behind glass, trimmed lawns, glowing porch lights, grocery stores closing their automatic doors, families carrying paper bags to their cars as if the world were simple enough to fit into an ordinary Tuesday night. Marcus kept both hands on the wheel and said nothing to the empty passenger seat. His uniform jacket lay folded beside him, heavier somehow than it had been that morning. He had carried difficult things before. Noise, suspicion, the stare of strangers who saw the badge before they saw the man, and the stare of officers who saw the man before they respected the badge. But this was different. This came from inside the house he had sworn to serve. When he pulled into the driveway, the porch light was already on. Maya Reed always left it on when he worked late, not because she was afraid, but because she believed a person coming home from hard places deserved to see light before opening the door. She was at the kitchen table grading essays when he walked in, a red pen resting between her fingers, reading glasses low on her nose, a mug of tea cooling beside a stack of papers from her 10th grade English class. She looked up once, and that was enough. Maya had been married to Marcus for 8 years. She knew the difference between tired and wounded. Bad shift? She asked softly. Marcus placed his keys in the small ceramic bowl near the door. Complicated. Maya did not push right away. That was one of the reasons he trusted her with the parts of himself he rarely showed anyone else. She waited while he changed out of his wet boots, washed his hands, and stood by the sink longer than necessary, staring at the water running over his fingers. Finally, he sat across from her. The kitchen light was warm. The rain tapped against the window. For a few seconds, the whole world narrowed to that table, that room, that woman watching him with concern she refused to turn into panic. He told her about the stop, about Jordan Ellis, about the complaint, about Travis marking it for preliminary review, about the schedule change, the missing body camera file, the portal status, the way conversation stopped when he entered the room. Maya listened without interrupting, but her face changed when he mentioned Jordan keeping his hands on the steering wheel. She had taught students like Jordan for more than a decade. Boys who smiled too politely at adults because they had been warned early that fear could be misread as guilt. Girls who kept receipts in their pockets because proof felt safer than memory. Children who learned to be careful before they were old enough to understand why the world demanded it from them. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Marcus leaned back and looked toward the window. "I am thinking maybe I made it worse." Maya set down her pen. "For who?" He looked at her then. She did not say it sharply. She said it like a door opening. Marcus had no easy answer. Maya folded her hands on the table. "You became a police officer because you believed the badge could protect people. Not just from danger on the street, but from danger wearing authority. Do not let them teach you that silence is professionalism." The words settled into the room with the sound of the rain. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, and what he saw was not Travis Cole or the internal portal or the red warning icon beside the missing file. He saw Jordan Ellis driving away with his shoulders tight. He saw Daniel Brooks looking down at the mail slots instead of speaking. He saw a department full of people waiting to find out whether telling the truth would cost Marcus more than burying it would cost Travis. When he opened his eyes, something in him had become clear. Not easier. Clear. Maya reached across the table and touched his hand. "Tell the truth exactly. Keep records. Do not give them anger they can use to ignore the facts." Marcus nodded slowly. Upstairs, the house was quiet. Outside, the rain kept falling. And in the small black notebook now resting beside his badge on the kitchen table, the truth was no longer just a complaint. It was becoming a map. The next morning, Marcus Reed did exactly what Maya had told him to do. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse anyone in the hallway. He did not give Travis Cole a single moment that could be twisted into attitude, resentment, or insubordination. He arrived at the station at 6:54 a.m., parked in the far lot under a gray sky, walked through the rear entrance, and began recording facts in the only way a man inside a fragile system could safely record them. Time, date, access attempt, system response, witness present. He checked the internal portal again. Case BRK 24-1187 still showed pending supervisory assessment. He checked the attachment list again. The body camera file still showed media unavailable. He checked the evidence system again. Access restricted. Supervisor authorization required. Then, at 7:19, he sent a formal email to Lieutenant Travis Cole requesting clarification on the complaint status, the forwarding timeline, and the missing body camera reference. He copied no one. Not yet. He kept the wording simple, professional, and impossible to misread. Requesting confirmation regarding policy-required review of bias concerns submission BRK 24-1187. Please advise whether this matter has been forwarded for independent review. Then he saved the sent email as a PDF and wrote the file name in his notebook. Across the station, Daniel Brooks watched from the report room doorway, holding a clipboard he had not looked at in several minutes. Marcus saw him, but said nothing. Daniel looked like a man standing at the edge of a cold pool, knowing he needed to jump and hating himself for waiting. Later that morning, Daniel found Marcus near the back parking lot, where patrol vehicles sat in two neat rows beneath dripping pine trees. For a moment, neither man spoke. The air smelled like wet asphalt and gasoline. Daniel glanced toward the building, then lowered his voice. "Reed, I saw something on the dispatch log." Marcus turned slowly. He did not step closer. He did not make it dramatic. "What did you see?" Daniel swallowed. The timestamp in the final report is not the same as the original call record. The stop was cleared later than Bennett wrote, by almost 20 minutes. Marcus held Daniel's eyes, letting the weight of that settle between them. 20 minutes was not a typo. 20 minutes could change the whole story of a stop. 20 minutes could hide questions, pressure, and decisions no one wanted reviewed. Daniel shifted the clipboard against his chest. "I should have said something yesterday." Marcus answered quietly. "Yes, you should have." The words were not cruel. That made them land harder. Daniel looked down. "I have a copy of the original dispatch log. I printed it before the system updated." Marcus felt the first rayal crack appear in the wall Travis had been building. Not victory, not relief, just a crack. "Do not give it to me in the parking lot," Marcus said. "Send it through the proper channel. Use your department email. Write exactly what you observed. Do not guess. Do not add feelings. Facts only." Daniel nodded, but fear was still on his face. "If Cole finds out," Marcus interrupted him gently. "He probably will." Daniel looked back toward the station, where the windows reflected the dull morning light. "Then what happens?" Marcus took a breath. "Then you decide whether your career is worth more when it is quiet or when it is clean." Daniel had no answer. Before either man could speak again, Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then answered. A woman's voice came through, careful but firm. "Officer Reed, this is Denise Walker. I was outside Eastbridge Market the other night. I recorded part of that traffic stop." Marcus looked toward the wet street beyond the lot. "Yes, ma'am. I sent the video yesterday morning to the email address the department gave me," she said. "Then I called records, and someone told me it was received." Marcus went still. "Did they give you a confirmation?" "Yes," Denise said. "That is why I am confused. I called again today, and they told me there is no video attached to the case." The rainwater slipped from the edge of a patrol car roof in slow drops. Marcus felt the map in his notebook redraw itself in his mind. Missing body camera file. Altered dispatch time. Witness video received, then gone. This was no longer neglect. This was movement. A hand had touched the truth more than once, and every touch had left a mark. Marcus did not call Denise Walker back from the parking lot. He thanked her, asked her to keep her original video file unchanged, and requested that she forward the confirmation email to the official complaint address again while copying the city's public accountability inbox. His voice stayed calm, but his mind was moving through every detail with quiet speed. Original file. Confirmation email. Routing path. Date stamp. Metadata. Truth had a body now. It had names and times and digital footprints. When he returned inside, the station looked the same as it always did, but Marcus no longer saw it as one building. He saw it as a map of choices. The records window where someone had confirmed Denise's video. The report room where Daniel had seen the altered dispatch timeline. The supervisor's office where Travis had placed the complaint outside the outgoing tray. The evidence server behind a locked digital gate that now required authorization from the very man whose decisions were being questioned. At 10:08 a.m., Daniel Brooks sent an email with the original dispatch log attached. He used careful language. No emotion, no accusation, just facts. Original dispatch printout retained prior to report update. Timestamps differ from final entry associated with stop on Briarwood Avenue. Marcus read the message twice, then saved it. 3 minutes later, Travis Cole stepped out of his office and looked across the bullpen. Not at Daniel, not at the duty board, at Marcus. It was not a long look, but it carried a message. I know you were still digging. Marcus did not look away. That was when the front desk phone rang, and the civilian records clerk, Angela Morris, answered it with her usual tired politeness. Angela had worked for the department for 17 years, long enough to know the difference between a mistake and a cover. She had watched officers come and go, watched chiefs promise reform, watched policies get printed and ignored. She had also been the person who confirmed Denise Walker's video the day before. Angela looked toward Marcus while still listening on the phone, and something in her face changed. Not fear. Decision. At 10:26 a.m., an anonymous message arrived in the internal affairs intake system downtown. It included no speech, no drama, no angry language. Just 4 attachments: a screenshot of Denise Walker's received video confirmation, a routing log showing the file had been moved out of the complaint folder, the original dispatch timestamp, and a note that said, check supervisory access on BRK 24-1187. Captain Evelyn Harris read it 11 minutes later. She was not dramatic when she worked. She did not slam desks or make threats. She was a woman in her early 50s with silver at her temples, sharp eyes, and a reputation for asking the one question no one in a room wanted answered. Who benefits if this disappears? By noon, she had requested server access records. By 12:40, she had compared the body camera reference to the backup archive. By 1:15, she had confirmed the file was not corrupted. It had been restricted. By 2:03, she had the access report in front of her. One supervisor had opened the complaint. One supervisor had changed the review status. One supervisor had accessed the media file before it became unavailable to the reporting officer. Lieutenant Travis Cole. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, looking at the name without surprise. She had seen this kind of thing before. Not always with the same words. Not always with the same faces. But the pattern was familiar. A complaint becomes a misunderstanding. A witness becomes a problem. A record becomes inconvenient. Then someone with rank tries to teach everyone below him that truth has a price. Evelyn picked up the phone and called the Brookhaven chief's office. Her voice was steady. I am opening a protected reporting officer inquiry involving Officer Marcus Reed. Preserve all records immediately. No deletions, no edits, no transfers without internal affairs authorization. Across town, Marcus was in the report room when his phone vibrated with an internal email notification. He opened it and saw the sender, Captain Evelyn Harris, Internal Affairs. For a second, every sound in the room seemed to fade behind the beating of his own heart. The message was short. Officer Reed, please report to Internal Affairs at 4:30 p.m. regarding complaint BRK 24-1187. Bring any personal notes or records you maintained. Marcus read it once. Then again, Daniel saw his face and whispered, Is it bad? Marcus closed the phone slowly. No, he said, though he was not fully sure yet. I think somebody finally looked where they were supposed to. At 4:30 p.m., Marcus Reed stepped into the Internal Affairs office with his small black notebook in his left hand and the weight of 9 days pressing quietly behind his ribs. The building was only 6 miles from the Brookhaven station, but it felt like another country. There were no patrol radios murmuring from the walls, no officers laughing near the coffee machine, no duty board where punishment could be printed like a schedule change. Just clean glass, muted carpet, and a receptionist who asked for his name without looking at his uniform first. Captain Evelyn Harris was waiting in a conference room with 2 folders, a laptop, and a recorder placed carefully in the center of the table. She did not smile in a way that promised comfort. She did something better. She treated him like a witness instead of a problem. Officer Reed, she said, Before we begin, I want you to understand your status. You are not the subject of this inquiry. You are a protected reporting officer. Marcus heard the words, but for a second they did not fully enter him. Protected. Reporting. Officer. 3 words that should have been simple. 3 words that felt almost unfamiliar after days of being watched, like he had broken something by telling the truth. Evelyn slid a form across the table. I need accuracy, not anger, not assumption. If you do not know something, say you do not know. If you observed it, state exactly what you observed. Marcus nodded. Yes, Captain. Then he opened the notebook. Page by page, the quiet map came alive. The stop on Briarwood Avenue at 8:42 p.m. The complaint filed at 11:17 p.m. The case number generated by the internal portal. Travis Cole's office meeting at 7:28 a.m. The phrase preliminary review. The schedule change posted by noon. The body camera file marked media unavailable. The restricted evidence access. The call from Denise Walker. The email from Daniel Brooks. None of it sounded dramatic when Marcus said it aloud. That made it stronger. Facts did not need to shout when they had nowhere to hide. Evelyn listened without interrupting except to clarify times, names, and system entries. Once, she turned the laptop toward him and showed him a server access log. Do you recognize this user identification? Marcus looked at the screen. T. Cole. Supervisor access. 9:06 a.m. That is Lieutenant Cole, he said. Evelyn clicked to the next page. And this? Media permissions changed. 9:14 a.m. Marcus felt his throat tighten, not from surprise, but from the strange pain of having his suspicion become visible. That was before I was told the file was unavailable, he said. Evelyn nodded once. Correct. One word. Quiet. Heavy. She opened the second folder and removed Denise Walker's routing confirmation. Then the original dispatch log. Then the updated final entry. Each document landed on the table like a footstep coming closer to a locked door. Marcus realized then that internal affairs had not summoned him to decide whether he was credible. They had summoned him because the records had already started speaking. Near the end of the interview, Evelyn asked the question that stayed with him longer than any other. Why did you keep notes outside the system? Marcus looked down at the black notebook, at the edges worn from months of carrying it in his pocket. Because systems are made of people, he said, and people can choose not to remember. Evelyn studied him for a moment, then turned off the recorder. That is why records matter, she said. And that is why retaliation policies exist. When Marcus left the building, the sky had cleared, and the wet pavement reflected the last gold light of the evening. He sat in his car for almost a full minute before starting the engine. For the first time since the stop, he did not feel alone with the truth. He did not feel safe yet. Safety was too big a word. But somewhere inside the machinery Travis had tried to control, a different gear had begun to turn.